The streets of Haiti, while the country's democratically elected president says he's been kidnapped by U.S. Marines. Was Haiti's president the target of a popular uprising or a well-organized plot? That's the debate tonight on Counterspin. Welcome to Counterspin. I'm your host, Carol Off. Jean-Bertrand Aristide came to power in Haiti in 1990 on a wave of popular support. Aristide was a priest from the slums of Port-au-Prince who offered a voice to the poor. He was overthrown only months after he took office and lived in exile until 1994, when U.S. President Bill Clinton sent 20,000 U.S. troops to Haiti and reinstalled him. Clinton says it was a victory for democracy, but many believed Clinton was more worried about the unwelcome stream of human cargo fleeing death squads and despots and heading to the U.S. in makeshift boats. But the U.S. and its partners set strident rules for Aristide's return. He had to follow an economic plan to open his country to unfettered trade. Haitians began to import their rice from the United States, where they lost the few jobs they had. Already the basket case of the Americas, Haiti sank even lower. Aristide's government was a mix of success and failure. He dismantled the army, which had terrorized Haitians for decades, and his government set up a police force with much help from Canada and the United States. But that force became corrupt and ineffectual. Aristide's party helped to arm a gang of thugs known as the Chimères, who threatened and killed opposition to Aristide. And Aristide also failed to deliver on many of his election promises. Still, Aristide's Lavalas party was returned to power by another landslide victory in the year 2000. Haiti's opposition said the election was rigged. Washington's incoming government at the time, under George W. Bush, agreed. He cut off aid payments. So did Canada. And in Washington, Haiti's ragtag opposition lobbied the U.S. to get rid of Aristide. It appears they got their way. So who was behind the overthrow of Jean-Bertrand Aristide? Did Canada help the United States engineer a coup? Was Aristide the author of his own fate or the victim of outside forces? Where will Haiti go from here? Joining us from Washington, Chlotilde Charlot of the Haiti Democracy Project and a former advisor to President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, which is now a detractor. In New York, Marguerite of the Haitian Lawyers Leadership Network, and also a former legal advisor to President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. In Montreal, Jean Fils-Aimé, a radio journalist with CPAM 1610, a popular Haitian radio station. And here in Toronto, Jean Saint-Ville, a radio journalist and communications officer for Pan-African organization Jacques Corbett. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into the record of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, let's talk about the events of the past weekend. We have two completely different versions of what happened. We have on the one side, the Americans say that, the president simply signed a letter of resignation and boarded a plane for Africa, and others who say he signed the letter under duress and was forced onto a plane. So let's begin with some understanding of what happened. Marguerite Laurent, can you start us off? What do you think happened this weekend?
We believe the president when he says that he was forced by U.S. Marines in the dead of night onto an airplane, that he did not resign, and that he is still the legitimate president of Haiti. The United States has been having a systematic campaign against the Lavalas government. Since 1990, they financed the first coup. They have been financing the destabilization and fomenting chaos and social conflict with their Duvalierist oppositions, and they continue to do so. But because of the popular support that Aristide had in Port-au-Prince, they could not, their Chimères, their thugs could not enter Port-au-Prince, so the United States Marines did the job for them.
Okay, because I don't want to get right now to the record of Aristide. I want to talk about these events. Clotilde Charlot, can you tell us what your understanding is of the events of the past weekend?
Well, my understanding is that, well, first of all, I have read President Aristide's resignation letter, and to me it looks like a very authentic document. And I feel that the events of the past week have been the culmination of a deepening of the crisis of the past 3 years. And to me and to many observers in Haiti and outside of Haiti, the bell had tolled for President Aristide since probably December the 5th. And I feel that with the empowerment of civil society during the past few months, and the joining of forces with the traditional opposition, which had been weak before, I feel that President Aristide had very little room to maneuver, and now with his police being as weak as it was, and for reasons that we will probably explain later, President Aristide did not really have anything to rely on at this stage.
Okay, Jean-Xavier, what's your understanding of what happened this weekend?
I think it's very clear. If the president was not kidnapped, I believe that the United States would have, as soon as he was out of the country, explained exactly how things had happened. President Aristide would not leave Haiti without giving a TV address to the people of Haiti. That doesn't make sense. And also, I was watching TV the night before the coup on the opposition website, one of them titled moon.com, MOUN.com. And at 9:34 p.m., there were people on that website already announcing that 5 helicopters had landed on the National Palace grass, and they were specifically saying that the whole diplomatic corps was in the palace, and Aristide is going to give his resignation speech in a few minutes. So when I called a friend of mine to ask him, do you see this anywhere on CNN, on Radio Canada, and everywhere? We spent at least an hour looking for that information. We went to bed really worried, and we woke up in the morning learning that President Aristide has resigned. But of course, we all knew what had happened, and I believe that most.
And so, you don't believe it's true? And Colin Powell has completely denied this. He said
Colin Powell has lied to the world in the last few years so many times that it's actually crazy to even be asking the question. And all these events are happening in the same week that we all learned that the Prime Minister of England was spying on the Secretary General of the UN. Okay, so let's put all these things in perspective.
Well, let's get this crazy question posed to Jean Fils-Aimé. Do you think that Colin Powell is lying when he says that Aristide simply got on a plane and left?
Well, we will never know the truth. I don't think that Aristide has left willingly. I think that the US forces have maintain a kind of pressure on him. I can rely to his last interview that he has given to CNN. It was on Saturday afternoon, and then he was still saying that he will never leave. He would prefer die instead of leaving. So I may understand that to leave, Aristide has received some pressures from the US forces, but I will never say that Aristide has been kidnapped. Actually, for me, the issue is not here. Aristide has received a mandate for 5 years, and after almost 3 years, he has done nothing. So the crisis has been created because of him, and then because of the destabilization that all the area could have been victim of because of Aristide, he needed to leave. And since that he did not want to, U.S. forces forced him to.
But Jean, there's this. I mean, he was elected, and his term was not up. What kind of message does it send to the world that Canada and the United States, France, other countries told him he had to go, that it was time to leave? What message does that send that we were supporting that movement?
It's a good question. You know, when we say that Aristide has been elected, and then according to the Haitian constitution, he has to spend 5 years on his presidential mandate. But we need not to forget that this is not the only article in our constitution. in our Haitian constitution, there are other articles according to which the president has to assure security to the population. He has to provide so many other things to the Haitian people. Or it seems that according to those who support Aristide, the only article that we have in the Haitian constitution is the one where it says that Aristide, the president must stay on the power for 5 years. I think that being elected is a kind of contract between you and your electors.
But isn't there also a contract that you have to honor that till you can't just decide that suddenly it's time for him to go? I want to bring Marguerite into this discussion because I'm wondering from you, what message do you think this sends to the world, to Caribbean countries, that a president can just be removed when, even if he wasn't fulfilling his promises?
I think that the message is clear, Carol. I think that we need to take part to the democratic process. If we don't want to, you need to leave or you will be forced to.
Okay, Marguerite, if you can just respond to that as well. What's the message?
I think it's the Bush message of preemptive policies and regime change. It is a message that has violated every single international law. It's a violation of the ONS Charter, the UN Charter, every treaty that we are part of. And all it says basically is that all you need to have is the largest gun, and you can have power in this world.
Clotilde?
Well, I believe that the message is that democracy is much more than elections. And as a matter of fact, between parentheses, Father Aristide was re-elected. His re-election in 2000 were very controversial. We will certainly address that later. But the message is that being elected is not a mandate to misbehave, to renege on any single commitment, to completely focus on, your maintaining yourself in power and neglecting the masses, neglecting the people, neglecting the security in a country, and even to a certain extent, encouraging this disrespect for the rule of law.
But don't you just wait for the election and throw the bums out, as we say in this part of the world? I mean, coups are kind of a strong message. Jean Sévillian on this.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. It's almost like you're talking about school children in a classroom and you're punishing children. The coup, first of all, was not conducted against Jean-Bertrand Aristide, but against the people of Haiti. You have adult people who have fully functional brains, who woke up very early, lined up, and voted for someone. Albeit those people don't have big checkbooks. Some of them don't even have proper clothing to wear. But they voted, and they are full human beings, and they voted this man. So it's ridiculous to be looking at this only focusing on Jean-Bertrand Aristide. What has happened here is that twice in a row, the United States, France, and the former colonial powers who ruined the people of Haiti denied the people of Haiti their right to self-govern. And that's the point. And that's why I'm saying that, in fact, while people are focusing on the coup against Aristide, the real story is not even about that. The real story is about foreign occupation. A foreign occupation that was announced years ahead of time, because there were meetings right here in Ottawa planning what's exactly happening today.
Okay, I do want to get into it because this is something that has been reported quite some time ago in the Canadian press, but it's actually an old story that no one's revived. You're speaking of a story that was reported, I think, in a year ago about something called the Ottawa Initiative on Haiti, a story that concerned Canada hosting a meeting in Ottawa with the
foreign ministers from France, from the United States,
whose idea was to get rid of Aristide.
Very clearly, the title was that Aristide must go. It's not the Haitian opposition asking for it, but foreign ministers at the invitation of Canada.